So, Lars, Schwinn, and Ole go to church. They get done yesterday, and they go back into the fellowship hall and sit around the table having coffee, busy talking. Pretty soon the pastor comes over and sits down by him, and he continues into the conversation. Pretty soon the pastor says, if you died today, what would people say when you're laying in your coffin? So Lars right away steps up and says, well, I hope they say I was a good husband and a good father. Oh. So Swen steps up, and he kind of looks a little bit, and he says, well, I hope they say I was a good businessman and I was a God-fearing man. Oh, that's pretty good. So Ole goes ahead and he looks at them and kind of says, well, if they're all looking at me, what I hope they'd say is, he's moving.
That's better we don't normally get.
Normally we face the flag when we sing God Bless America, but you have to close your eyes and imagine there's a flag.
Which way?
Which way?
Forward. Land of my love, stand beside her and guide her through the night of the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white and foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Why, Les?
Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, what a special week this is. Come to you in prayer and to remember the agony that your Son, Jesus Christ, went through for all of us. So Lord, let us all remember this week, the Good Friday, and then the Resurrection Sunday. What a special week this is indeed for all Christians everywhere. God, thank you for this time together, for the wives and spouses that can join us. Thank you, Lord Jesus, that for the Lions Club, for the work that Dale and the rest are doing, and we thank Dale for the leadership with the I program. Now, Heavenly Father, just be with us through this day and let us enjoy our time together this noon. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for everlasting life. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, Lion Dave's got a guest.
Guest here today is Jeff Otto. He's been in Orange City for 4 years. Came from Heart Lake. His son-in-law is Grant Higsted from the high school, and a good friend of mine. So invited him to come, and I hope he enjoys it.
We've given some money to Habitat for Humanity, and we had Kurt Frangie talking to us here not too long ago, and I don't know if you noticed or not, but they're having a groundbreaking tomorrow at 1501 Juneau Place Southeast at 10 a.m. So if you happen to be around, it'd be a nice little thing to do. And then also I got a note from our Lions Northwest District that we all kind of gave some money to the Melvin Jones Birthday Fund. Well, it didn't all come from here, but that raised $2 million. Wow. That's awesome. So, some people gave good amounts for that. Okay. All right, let's do, yes.
Real quickly, seeing you're talking about that, just for your information, we're supposed to be getting this new camera, so but they made one, and they brought it down to the university, and they tried it, and they had a bunch of things that they wanted changed. So they said they'd take it back, and they're trying to redo it, so we probably won't get that camera till fall, just so everybody's up to date on that.
So we raised money to go with 3 other clubs, I think it was, to have our own camera that Dale does the testing with the children. And, we used to have to get it from Sioux City or someplace, or,
Akron, Lamar's, and Remsen.
that's, you're gonna have it now, but before that, where did you get the camera?
Used to be Ray Ollinger come all the way over to Pocahontas
Yeah,
and did the
there you
video.
go, right. So we bought our own camera, these 4 clubs.
Well, we didn't buy this one because they said we could use it, but we're paying a fourth of this one,
Yeah.
with the other 3
Right,
cans.
right.
Yeah.
That's a very nice program. Okay, let's have, school reports. By the way, Dave Mulder, I think he was in the ER and his wife's had some extra problem with her cancer and it's not been going real good. So say an extra prayer for David, okay? So, anybody have any Northwestern report?
Well, I usually report on the track team
Yeah, okay.
with good information provided by my son. I got it while I was going through the line here, so I don't have a lot to read so on that. Basketball wise, if you guys are aware of the Iowa Basketball Coaches Association, boys have a tournament. I think Blake was there last year, wasn't he, Dave? What they do is they split the state into 4 different northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast, and that's how they break their kids up. And then they choose kids out of each boys and girls or whatever. They come together, the coaches do, and they select people. This year, the Unity, I'm talking about Orange City now. Unity had Dylan Bosma participate and Austin Wieringa. Those are the units guys. And for the boys from MOC, it was Carter Van Gelder and a little gal called Addie Eltima. So they, it was a fun day. Joy and I went down and it was a lot of fun. They do free throw contests and things like that. So it's a really good day.
And we have it for in baseball from Hastings. Got drilled the last game when a guy hit a home run and grand slam, that kind of put it away. And the girls, softball, they split at Midland and swept Mount Martin. And then the track, I think we did pretty well there and at Wayne State.
Oh, you did? Yeah, say it,
Doug, very quickly, can we thank Shelley for a great meal today?
No, Shelley, I think we're gonna have you back again sometime. All right, anything with Unity Morris Orange City?
I'll hit on Unity. So they have a fairly busy day today. They picked a nice day. It sounds like the Dutch are hosting a quad track meet. So I'm assuming that means 4 teams
Tonight.
this evening. And then
Isn't he good? He
They-
figured that out himself.
I've been lost it completely. And then the JV varsity boys play soccer at Keelan. Last week I mentioned they played Boyd and Hull Rock Valley, but that ended up being a scrimmage, so there's no score reported on that one. And then tomorrow evening, Unity is hosting a middle school band activity. I'm guessing it's probably an all-day thing where they bring middle school kids in and then have a concert at night at Unity. And then the rest of the week I think they're off Wednesday, I think they're off Thursday, Friday, Monday, with Easter week, so. That's all I had.
All right. Anything from Morris Orange City? You got anything, Dave, or?
No,
Yeah.
Jenny did pretty good on that.
Very good. All right, So we'll get started with, he's gonna show a little something first, and then we'll do a little tour of the, facility here.
I'm on the board at the airport here, been on here, with the project since 1998. And so we opened it up a few years ago, and Air Flare was our airport manager at the time and continues to be. And Andrew Schreier is now in the position as president of Air Flare. And he'll talk about the airport. They actually run it for us, the day-to-day operations, snow removal, et cetera. So I'll let Andrew talk from you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate that very much. You guys picked the nice day to come out. I know when Dwayne and I started talking about this, I kind of made a mention like, maybe we wait till the weather's really nice, so we don't have to worry about cancellations and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll take this day, for the end of March. We'll definitely take it. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Andrew Schreier, and I grew up in basically Orange City most of my life. Probably a little bit in Marcus early on, but then went to MLC, and so I'm a local guy. Went to Dort, and then obviously I had to start flying at some point. So I got my private pilot's license when I was in my final year at Dort, and then went over to Iowa Lakes and Esterville, which is where a lot of pilot training happens. And so got my instrument rating, commercial, flight instructor side of it, et cetera, et cetera. And then at the time, Randy Vanderwhite, who used to own Air Flare, the old Sioux Center Airport, he used to be the manager up there, was had two part-timers leaving, and so I came on full-time, and that's been almost 20 years ago already. So we've so there's a couple of different roles that I fill out here, and we're going to talk about some of those. We're also going to talk about the relationships that we have with the county, with the cities, etc. And I think they're pretty cool. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and then ultimately, once you get tired of hearing me talk, we're going to go see some of our airplanes. We've got all three of our jets here today. Talk a little bit about what we do on the maintenance side, how we basically what do our days look like out here from a business standpoint, and then ultimately what does the airport support operationally, because we do operate out here 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and so we'll talk about that just a little bit. So for how many, I'm just always curious, how many people is this the first time they've been out to the airport? A few people, okay, good, love it. Just check a few more boxes off. So what you see up here, and so I'll back up here just a little bit. I'm gonna go way back, probably to 1999, 2000 is when this concept of a new airport came to be. And through time, through conversations with cities, counties, etc., is how this began to be more than just an idea, be able to become blueprints, plans, etc., partnerships that have been just absolutely fantastic. So when this airport opened, ultimately the airports in Orange City and Sioux Center, and kind of unrelated, but Haywarden had already closed at that time. And so this airport was now the regional airport for the region. The closest regional airport we have outside of us would be like the Spencer Airport. And then you could get up to Sioux Falls and Sioux City for your larger airline service airports. So this airport is a partnership between three entities, and one of them being City of Sioux Center, the City of Orange City, and then obviously the county is involved in well. Well, why is that such an important partnership? So the partnership comes from basically grant money, right? So it takes money to run an airport, to own it, to operate it, etc. And there are federal levels of participation and there are state levels of participation. And so most of the time, there is a 90-10 split between participations from the government and locally. So usually at an airport that doesn't have a partnership like what we have out here, that 10% is going to be funded locally. So maybe a county or maybe one individual city. Now what we get to have is this partnership share of 10% between three entities. We have a larger footprint, but then also we have more participation, which allows those dollars to go just a little bit further. And so our airport does support quite a wide range of area. So like I said, our closest airports would be, that would come, I don't want to say compete, because airports really don't compete. But ultimately, we have an operation base here that supports charter, ownership, medevac flights, crop dusting, And so there's an economic impact number that's tied to that. And the last economic impact would have been on you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, Dwayne, but 2021 numbers, which was released by the Iowa DOT in 2022. And so fairly old at this point, but at that point, the economic impact of this airport was just north of $7 million. And so that's a pretty substantial number because off of 2021's numbers, this airport had only been in operation for about 3 years. So where it's come from then to where it is today is quite a bit. And so we're going to talk about what is some of this airport. So right now you see an overhead view of basically the airport, and we're in this terminal building right here, and then we have some private hangars along with some public hangars that we use for like aircraft owners. They're able to rent those units from the airport board, from the agency. And then we have some private hangars in the back row. We have two aerial spraying businesses out here as well, which that's kind of unusual to have two competing businesses, right? But we all know that there's a fair amount of acres in northwest Iowa, and they're all getting treated with fungicides, insecticides, fertilizers, whatever it is, and a lot of that happens aerially. Now, yes, it does happen primarily in the July and August timeframe, but it does really happen even starting now. They'll start flying pastures for weed control, and then they'll, like last year was such a wet year, most acres, like 95% of acres were all done via air because it was so wet you couldn't even ground rig in there. When you start talking on the producer side of it, that's a pretty big deal if they can't get their crops treated, right? So, okay, so we have two egg operators out here, and then we also have a company called Optic Air. They are a small piston, single and multi-engine airplane operator that flies airplanes all over the country, some into Canada. And what they're doing is they have cameras mounted on the bottom of their airplane, and they're flying basically lines. They're flying back and forth over sections of land, and then they're doing that for a third party. And that third party takes that imagery data and uses it for anything from planning purposes all the way to, let's say a substantial storm goes through and hails out your roof. They can buy this data, run their programs through it, measure your roof without ever having to send out an adjuster to pay out your claim. So that's just a couple of small examples of what they do. I don't know everything they do. A lot of it is government type contracts, but they do run quite a few airplanes out of here as well. And then the other one that Dwayne mentioned is me, what I do. So I fill a couple of roles out here. One of them is I own Airflare. So Airflare is what we call the FBO, or the fixed base operator out here. So we provide basically all the services to any airplane that he's come in here. So think of it like we provide the rental cars and the fuel and the maintenance and the hangars. That airplane has to be taken care of when it gets here because they typically don't have any type of resources. They might be having meetings with companies in Rock Valley or Sheldon or Orange City or Sioux Center, wherever it is. They're going to bring in their people, do their day, and so we're here to take care of their pilots, their airplane, their transportation needs once they get to the airport. On top of that, we have a really cool role that we get to fill because of that. We get to be kind of the first welcoming mat to people that are stepping off an airplane. They've never been here before. They've never been to Northwest Iowa. And so we get to have the first interaction with them. And so the facility that you're sitting in today is part of that partnership between those three entities and the state and the Iowa DOT, the federal government, to help us have a really cool platform to welcome them to Northwest Iowa. I think most of you came through the back door here, but if you have time to go up into our front lobby, take a walk around, there is a wall of what we call a donor wall up on our northeast corner of the wall. And what that is, let me back up here a second. This was about a $30 to $35 million project to build this airport, so pretty substantial undertaking. There was just shy of $1 million raised privately through donors, and that donor wall reflects the donations that were given out here to make terminal building upgrades, so kind of the vestibule, walk-in area, etc. And then also, I have a picture of it, right here. So we have a 5,500 foot runway out here, so just over a mile long with a full parallel taxiway. Right down here is what we call a Malsar lighting system, where basically when the weather is really, really poor, we have the ability to get airplanes on the ground, and we can get down all the way to about 100 feet above the ground. Well, when we had the old airports, we could only get down to about 500 feet above the ground before we had to see the airport land. This lighting system allows us to have those lower landing minimums so that we can get our airplanes, and all airplanes, in bad weather, fog, etc., etc. Before we had this airport, just our operation alone, we were probably leaving 3 to 4 airplanes per month on the road. Whether that be in Sioux Falls or Sioux City or Omaha, we didn't have the ability to bring those airplanes home because of lower weather. And so this has just been part of that private fundraising that happened, and the support that we get operationally to be able to have that opportunity. If we didn't have this in the charter world, we can't even start to think about coming to this airport. So from a usability function, that's a really big deal. So, well, what does it mean to have a usable airport? Well, the federal government talks about it in operations, right? So how many operations is an airport having on any given day, year, and then it gets into like funding amounts and et cetera, et cetera. Our airport, year-round, averages somewhere around 60 to 80 operations per day. So an operation is a takeoff, and another operation is a landing. So we average, days like this, we're gonna be well above that number. Days like, when was it really windy? Saturday, we probably only had maybe 10 or 15 operations that day. So a lot less than what would be an average day. Now you get us to July or August, and we're 5 times that number, because there might be a dozen plus egg aircraft that are landing every several minutes, and so there's dozens and dozens and dozens of operations every single day. So that, anyway, that was part of the funding, the private fundraising that happened. There you can see that night, which is
Can you go back to that one?
Yep, maybe. No. Try this.
Left arrow.
Hey, you can see the shaded area that goes across. That's a future crosswind runway. And as part of the original land acquisition, we actually have the property right now to be able to build that. That's probably a ways into the future, because it's gonna cost a few dollars, and to get the FAA excited about it is gonna take a little work. But just to let you know that we do have the property for that too.
And that, yeah, so I did kind of skip one big point. What do we own out here? Is it around?
480.
Yeah, I'd say just shy of 500 acres. And some of that is just in actual dirt that we're using. Some of that is ground that is being leased back to farmers for row crops. So like right now, even though this is eventually there's gonna be a crosswind runway here, there's no need for that. So let's go ahead and make some revenue, put that crop production back into, make it usable. So, on top of that, we have about 30, 35 acres worth of concrete that we move snow off of every year as well. And so that is a lot. And so we have a full team of guys, and that's what we do. We do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because we're not just supporting the private flying side of it, we're supporting the air ambulances, stuff that we don't know. Avera, Sanford are coming in at all hours of the day. We have no idea really when they come in, but usually if you're in an airplane going over at 2 in the morning, coming in here, it's most likely not back related event. On top of that, they need the support, because they only know what they know from a weather condition when they leave Sioux Falls or Rochester or Omaha or wherever they're coming from. And so they call people like me to give them runway condition reports and make sure the runway is plowed and all that kind of stuff, because we don't have 24-hour snow removal out here, because we don't have like the airline service. So it's available, but it just takes some coordination, and we work with some really good people to make all that happen. So, let's see, just going back here a couple of years, this is the newest development that the airport is working on right now. Thus why back from the original kind of planning, funding, we thought about this time is where we would be putting in that crosswind runway. Well, when we opened this airport in November of 2018, so just call it 2019, we basically opened at full capacity from a hangar standpoint. All of our T hangars were full. Most of our corporate hangars were very close to capacity. And so thus began starting the conversation of, well, is this just a little bit of backup pent demand that we're now fulfilling, or is this actual growth? And long story short, this airport right now houses about 88 airplanes that call Sioux County Regional home. That's a lot of airplanes. And we don't exactly have 88 spots. So airplanes are stacked tight, there's not much working room. And so right now, we've had several expansion projects out here over the years. Everything from our maintenance building, where we put snow removal equipment, to Optic Air building their hangar and calling Sioux County Regional home, and then now Airflare is building another hangar to help house some of their airplanes as well. So pretty cool development from that side. I know I see Ryan smiling in the back, that's kind of down your line. But the development out at the airport this is really rare, guys, and that's why I bring this up. We travel all over the country, and you see a lot of airports that are kind of just maintained, not really growing, not really thriving. And so what's the demand? Where does this all come from? Well, it comes from having an awesome board. It has come from great customers who want to use this airport. And I'll give you an example of that. Obviously, I mentioned Randy running the old Sioux Center Airport. And get me back to probably the mid-90s, if I'm on my mid to late 90s, Pelicorp. Before they built their facility, the first place they went was the airport. If they can't bring an airplane in with their project managers, with their team members, with their support staff, it's probably not a location that they're gonna wanna say, okay, well, we're gonna fly our guys into Sioux Falls, we're gonna spend an hour on the road each way, times 6 or 8 people or whatever the time frame is for them to drive. They want efficiency. So airports are one of the first places that developers go or businesses go to consider whether they're going to move a business into a certain town or region or anything like that. So, and now and even today, we still see customers like Pelicorp coming in here, which is pretty cool. So a little bit about what we do. So if you saw when you were pulling up, you saw a couple of fuel tanks. We run a couple of different fuels out here, jet fuel and avgas. And so with that, we provide, like I said, the fuel services. We also provide the maintenance. I've got just under 20 employees that work just for Airflare out here. Everything from charter pilots to flight instructors, we train. I think at any given time we have around 20 to 25 students that we are providing active training to. So we stay pretty busy on the training side, which is really great. We do a lot of maintenance as well. We've got 6 full-time mechanics, and that's all they do is turn wrenches and do inspections and maintenance for us. And then we also provide, like we mentioned, all the snow removals. That's just part of the airport manager side. And then we also have a charter certificate. Okay, the charter certificate is probably one of the biggest components of what I do on a daily basis, because that is basically an airline service only with non-scheduled service. Meaning, if somebody wants to have an airplane, if I go back, you can see the donor wall. Right up there. That's where the donor wall is. And so, on a daily basis, let's see if I can get to our fleet planes. There's one of them. There's one of our fleet planes. So we run 5 charter aircraft, and so part of the charter side of it is we are an on-demand operator, meaning we do not have scheduled routes, and we will fly anywhere in the lower 48 as long as the runway is long enough to accommodate the airplane. And so we're on the schedule of whatever the client is. So we send a lot of airplanes out between 5 and 7 in the morning, where you might have project managers, management staff, auditors, whatever it is, flying from point A to point B. And we might have anywhere from 2 to 3 to 9 people on board that airplane. the amount, the reason that we do a lot of, charter work is because they're really time machines. So think of it from like a per diem or a travel standpoint. If you're gonna send an employee out on a business trip, they're gonna have to leave maybe the night before, go up to maybe get a hotel, or at least wake up at very early hours to catch the 5:30 or 6:30 flight out of Sioux Falls or Omaha or Minneapolis. Go catch a connection, long story short, or they're catching they're gonna be driving from point A to point B. Well, if you put enough people on that vehicle or that airplane, all of a sudden time becomes a really big issue. You're spending more time traveling than the amount of time you actually might be at a meeting. We spend, I'll just give you an example. We were in Denver last week, and we took a number of people out to Denver, and we were there for about a 5-hour meeting. That round trip on one of our airplanes is about 2.5 hours total round trip, so about an hour and 15 minutes each way on this airplane. If they had done that from a driving standpoint, or even an airline, it probably would have been a 3-day trip. Instead, we got on the airplane at 8 o'clock in the morning, got off the airplane by, I think we're back here by like 4:30 in the afternoon or something. But they were able to complete their whole work day uninterrupted, just dedicated. Go out, do their work, and come back. Is there a cost to do that? Absolutely. But what we've heard from our customers is there's an even bigger cost because of the retention side of it. When somebody signs up to, work a job, sometimes the unmentioned downfall is the amount of travel that's required. You guys have all had jobs where you know what time it takes to travel from point A to point B. And so retention has really been a big asset to them, which is why people own airplanes and why people charter airplanes. They can do more work in 1 or 2 days than they can maybe in a potential week. And so we see a lot of our customers, we've been in business for 46 years providing charter service. And so, yeah, we started in single engine pistons, multi-engine pistons, turboprops, and now we're up into the light and mid-jet category. And that's just simply demand. As businesses grow, we need to keep up our business to support their needs. And so they've seen really on the family side of that investment returning directly to them in retaining quality employees. And that's a really big deal to what we do.
How many pilots would you have that could fly your jets, and are they all based out of this area right
That's
here?
a great question. So right now we run 3 jets, and each one of those jets requires 2 pilots. Okay, so right now I have, give me a second, 1, 2, 3. I think I have 8 pilots that can fly our jets. Some of them fly multiple airplanes, and then our turboprops only require 1 pilot at a time. And so to answer your question, we have the ability to send any of our airplanes out at any given time with a full crew because that's what the airplane requires. And so most of my guys, I have one guy living in Sioux Falls right now who just got married, and that's where they live. Otherwise, Alton, Orange City, Sanborn, Sioux Center, Lamar's. Everyone is within probably about a 35-minute drive of here. That's pretty cool. To be in Northwest Iowa and to have that type of quality employees, very, very blessed to have that. We've got guys that are, been flying for 40+ years. So you've got 10+ thousand hours, 15+ thousand hours of experience behind the wheel of the airplane. And from a quality side of it, they have a ton of experience. And so we feel very blessed to be able to provide that to our customers. Any other questions or anything like that?
You have the runway that you're considering perpendicular for the future. What is a typical life of a runway before you have to resurface or redo it?
That is a great question. So that kind of falls under a few things. One of them is painting. I'll kind of work the way down to replacement, right? One of them is painting. We just had our first repaint from opening this past fall. So that lasted approximately 6 to 7 years, which is a really good number for how much snow removal we do out here. Snow removal is really hard on paint, and that's obviously a special paint for the Iowa DOT because it's slightly reflective at night for the pilots. Okay, take that down now to like your seal coat. I think we're probably about 2 years away from needing to reseal the joints. That all affects the quality of the concrete. From there, if you start to have a lot of chipping and whatnot out of the panels of the concrete, then you can go in and just selectively replace some of those panels. From an entire replacement side, I think it comes down to probably a number either from the Iowa, is that an Iowa DOT?
Yeah,
Iowa DOT number that they have invested X dollars, it would cost X dollars to keep maintaining it. Therefore, you know, whether the longevity is maybe 20 or 25 years on that concrete, I don't know. Then they would think about coming in here and doing a complete replacement. Yep.
You said you had 24-hour service here with these planes. What do you have for air control for these planes coming in?
Great question. None. So the way airports like this work is we do not have an operating air traffic control, okay? What I mean by that is we are on a self-announced position, so each pilot in the airplane is going to be making an announcement of where they are. And of course there's standards, you know, with like traffic patterns and entries and exits and how we kind of operate around the airspace of the airport. And so we're making these announcement procedures over a radio frequency that other pilots, when they're listening to our radio frequency, can then communicate and we can separate our own way. Get to like Sioux Falls, Sioux City, those would be our two closest operating aircraft control towers where you actually need clearances to take off and taxi and land, and they're providing the separations. We don't have that at the ground level here. As the weather becomes less and less what we call VFR, be able to see and avoid the other airplanes, then new rules kind of take effect, and then we are separated because we're on what's called an instrument flight plan. So before we take off, we're getting a clearance basically to go into those clouds where we can't see other aircraft, and air traffic control is separating us per their rules, both laterally and vertically.
You mentioned the average number of flights a day. Who is keeping tabs on that thing?
Yep, so kind of me.
Okay.
And that changes a little bit, right? I kind of have averages where basically every once in a while we will just update an average, right? Today, I can go back and look, and let me back up here a little second. There's a new feature in technology that is installed in airplanes called ADS-B. ADS-B allows for basically GPS type tracking of airplanes once they leave the ground and then once they come back. So it's a really easy way for us to get a rough idea of how many airplanes are coming and going, because they may or may not show up on like an aircraft tracking software or something like that. Because we don't have a aircraft in tower, they're not keeping direct count of the number of operations. Now, on a day like during the summer, I know how many airplanes that we're gonna have on a given day for each of the egg operators, and I can tell you how many loads each airplane is gonna do. And it's gonna be a really, really close number to how many operations we have that day. Same thing today. Okay, I will, every once in a while, sit in the office, be like, I'm going to keep track of how many operations we have on this airport today. And so I'll keep track of our flight instructors, I'll keep tabs of how many transient aircraft we have coming in. And so there's just always kind of this count going on of how many operations are happening out of the airport. Yep.
What about the length of your runway? Do you look at needing to expand that?
That's a great question. So the answer is 5,500 feet is not the longest runway in the world, but it's definitely going to allow us to land on a dry runway every type of business jet that is manufactured today. No problem, okay? Where that starts to be a little bit more challenging is when the runway becomes contaminated, either with rain, standing water, ice, snow, etc. Now, the performance numbers to the flight crews increase that number drastically. So we have a couple of tricks and tools in our toolbox that we can have the ability to go out and scrape and mechanically remove or even chemically remove ice off of our runway to make our runway usable. It is kind of expensive and it's time consuming, but the reality is we live in Iowa, right? There are times where we fight ice and snow on weeks on end. but we will win. But sometimes those temperatures are what's fighting against us, where we're minus 20 degrees, 0 degrees, whatever, for an extended period of time. Well, the reason that we have those policies in place is because of the medevacs, because of the emergency flights. The worst thing we could do is shut this airport down because of winter. And so we work really hard, both from a time and labor standpoint, and then also a equipment standpoint, to be able to keep this airport operational as long as we possibly can. And then there's sometimes where we just can't keep up. We'll close it, and then we'll come back and recover whenever the storm is through.
Do you have to close a portion of it because of the, your length? Because of the weather at times?
So what we do is we can issue what are called notices to airmen. So when you have a runway, you have 3 segments of it: touchdown, midpoint, and then a rollout. And so I have the ability to tell pilots exactly what each third of that runway is going to be like. So they might be like, okay, the entire runway is 100% ice. Or maybe the runway, maybe they de-iced the runway, but they didn't de-ice the ramp. Or maybe we're gonna de-ice the runway, but we're not gonna de-ice any of these smaller taxiways. Maybe one way in and one way out. And so we have ways to communicate that information to flight crews that are coming in. Yep. Any other questions, anything I missed? I know I've kind of been talking here a little while, but that's okay. I wanna show you guys what we get to do out here, some of the businesses that are out here, but ultimately, it's time to go see some of our equipment. We're very proud of some of the equipment that we have out here. We do a couple of things. One of them is obviously, like I said, chartered. The one I did not mention is we are a management company as well. So we're gonna see a couple of airplanes that the asset is owned by businesses locally, and we are their flight department. We'll kind of talk about that as we walk through the hangars here a little bit. We are an operating shop. We do have guys working around. There might be, I think it's mostly picked up right now. But just kind of be careful, there are some things poking out of the airplanes, with static wicks and whatnot, so just kind of be careful as you walk around. But we're gonna head to our maintenance shop first, and then I'll take you to our storage hangar, and we'll talk through what's going on.